When Candace told me over the phone that she and Marcus had gotten married the day before and I had not been invited because they only wanted special people there, I did not cry. I sat on my worn brown sofa, holding my cell phone in one hand and an embroidery needle in the other, and I felt something inside my chest grow very still and very cold, like water right before it turns to ice. Special people. I repeated those words in my mind while I looked down at the tablecloth I had been working on for 6 weeks. Yellow and red pansies, each petal requiring careful counting of stitches because my arthritis made my hands shake if I worked too fast. 243 hours of work, measured out in 15-minute intervals between the throbbing in my knuckles. A wedding gift for a wedding I would never attend. My name is Adeline Parker. I am 68 years old, and I taught second grade at Carver Elementary in Birmingham, Alabama for 32 years before I retired. I know how to recognize a lie because 7-year-olds have not yet learned to make them convincing. But grief makes you stupid sometimes. Loneliness makes you blind. And for 3 years after my husband Jerome died, I was both stupid and blind. The phone call came on a Tuesday in March. Hot outside, the kind of Alabama heat that arrives too early and stays too late. I had all my windows open because the air conditioning in my house had been broken since January, and I kept putting off calling the repairman because Marcus needed help with his rent, and I figured I could wait until summer. I could always wait. I was good at waiting. When I saw Candace's name on my phone screen, my first thought was that maybe she was calling about my dress for the wedding. We had been planning it for 8 months, or at least I thought we had been planning it. Maybe she wanted to know if I preferred to sit on the aisle or closer to the back. Maybe she needed help with some detail, some small task that would make me feel useful. Needed. I answered on the second ring, sounding too eager even to my own ears. Adeline, this is Candace. She always called me Adeline. Never Mom or even Miss Adeline like my students used to say. Just my first name, flat and familiar in a way that assumed closeness without earning it. Hi, honey. What can I do for you? I need to tell you something and I need you to stay calm. My stomach tightened. That phrase, stay calm, is what people say right before they tell you something that will make staying calm impossible. What happened? Is Marcus okay? Oh, Marcus is fine. We are both fine. Actually, we are better than fine. We got married yesterday. Silence. The kind of silence that has weight and texture. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. I could hear a car horn from outside my window. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. You got married. Yes. We decided at the last minute to just do something really simple and intimate at the courthouse. No fuss, no stress, just us and the people who matter most. You know how overwhelming big weddings can be. I stood up without meaning to. The embroidered tablecloth slid from my lap onto the floor. I did not pick it up. You got married and you did not tell me. Adeline, please do not make this into a thing. We wanted something small and meaningful. Just our closest people, our special people. There was that word again, special. I looked at the tablecloth on the floor, at the yellow and red pansies I had been stitching one painful stitch at a time. I looked at my laptop sitting on the kitchen table where I had been tracking my bank transfers to make sure their rent cleared on time. I looked at the pill bottles on my counter, half of them empty because I had been stretching my prescriptions to make my Social Security check last until I could send them next month's payment. I see. Do you? Because I really need you to understand that this was not about you. This was about us and what we needed for our relationship. My hands had started shaking. I pressed my palm flat against the wall to steady myself. Congratulations to you both. Thank you. I knew you would understand. We are thinking maybe we will do a little reception later, something casual at our place, and obviously you will be included in that. Obviously. The word tasted bitter. I need to go now, Candace. Are you upset? You sound upset. Adeline, I really hope you are not going to be difficult about this. Difficult. That was a word I would hear again soon, in different contexts, in different voices. It would become the label they used to justify everything that came after. I am not being difficult. I am saying congratulations, and I am hanging up now. I disconnected before she could respond. My phone fell from my hand onto the sofa cushion. I walked to the kitchen very slowly, like I was learning how to move through the world again. I picked up the embroidered tablecloth from where it had fallen. The pansies looked cheerful against the white linen, mockingly cheerful. I walked to my kitchen trash can, the one under the sink that Jerome installed 20 years ago and that had outlasted him by 6 years. I lifted the lid and dropped the tablecloth inside, on top of coffee grounds and banana peels and the remains of my breakfast. That was the first thing I threw away. It would not be the last. I spent the next 3 hours sitting at my kitchen table with a yellow legal pad, writing down everything I could remember about the last 3 years. Not memories exactly, numbers, dates, transfers, promises made and obligations assumed and boundaries crossed so slowly I had not noticed I was disappearing. When Marcus called that evening, I let it ring 4 times before I answered. Mom. His voice sounded tight, strained, like he knew this conversation was coming and had been dreading it, but also could not avoid it. Candace said she told you. She told me. I know you are probably upset, but I need you to understand, it was not about you. We just wanted something simple. Something simple. My mind flashed to the dress hanging in my closet, $240 from Nordstrom, the most I had spent on myself in 5 years. I had been saving for it since Christmas, putting aside $20 here and there whenever I could tutor after school. Marcus, do you remember what today is? Silence on his end. He did not remember. Today is the day I paid your rent. Again. Like I have every 15th of the month for 3 years. Mom, I appreciate that, you know I do. Do you? Because from where I sit, appreciation usually includes inviting someone to your wedding. His voice shifted, got that edge to it that meant he was about to tell me I was overreacting. Mom, please, do not do this. Do not make this about money. Then what should I make it about, Marcus? Help me understand what I should feel right now. You should feel happy for me. You should be glad I found someone I love. I sat with that for a long moment. Outside, the sun was setting, turning my kitchen walls orange and gold. I am glad you found someone, I said quietly. I truly am. But I wish you had found someone who taught you to value your mother as more than a bank account. That is not fair. Fair. Jerome used to say that fair was a place where you rode the Ferris wheel and ate cotton candy. Fair did not exist in the real world. But that was a lesson Marcus had never learned, and I was tired of trying to teach it. Congratulations on your marriage, Marcus. I mean that. I hope she makes you happy. Mom, please. I hung up. Then I turned off my phone completely and sat in my darkening kitchen until I could not see anything but shadows. I turned my phone back on the next morning at 9:30 after I had made myself eggs and toast and eaten every bite, even though my stomach felt like it was full of stones. The screen lit up with notifications, 42 missed calls, 58 text messages, numbers that told me everything I needed to know about what I meant to them. I poured coffee into the mug Jerome gave me for our 20th anniversary, the one with a crack running down the handle that I kept meaning to throw away, but never did. I sat at the table and read through the messages in order, watching panic turn into anger, turn into threats. Marcus had sent the first ones around 11 the night before. Mom, call me back. Then at midnight, we need to talk about this. By 2 in the morning, his texts had changed tone. You are being unreasonable. This is not fair to us. Us. He had said us, not me. Already he was aligned with Candace against me, merged into a unit where I existed somewhere outside the boundaries. Candace's messages started at 1 in the morning and they were different. Sharper, more honest maybe, in their cruelty. Are you seriously doing this right now, Adeline? Then, we have bills due and you cannot just abandon us. And finally, at 3:15 in the morning, You will regret this decision. Remember that we gave you a place in our lives when you had nothing. I read that last message 3 times. We gave you a place in our lives, as if my place in Marcus's life was something she had granted, something that could be given and therefore taken away. As if being his mother was a privilege she controlled. I set my phone down and opened my laptop, logged into my bank account, and started going back through 3 years of transactions. It took me 4 hours to document everything, and by the end, my coffee had gone cold and my hand was cramping from writing. Rent payments to their landlord, Davidson Properties in Atlanta. $1,200 on the 15th of every month for 36 months. $43,200. Furniture purchases on my credit card. The sectional sofa from West Elm that Candace said was essential for entertaining, though I had never been invited to see it used. The dining table from Crate & Barrel, the bed frame, the nightstands, the lamps, the rugs, $18,700. Grocery deliveries from Whole Foods because Candace claimed sensitivities to everything at regular supermarkets. $600 monthly. $21,600 over 3 years. Utility bills. Car insurance. Health insurance copays for procedures I still did not understand. Veterinary bills for their French bulldog puppy that cost more than my monthly pension. Subscription services to streaming platforms I had never heard of. Emergency transfers with vague descriptions like help or short or unexpected that came through Venmo at odd hours and odd amounts. $50 here, $300 there, once a full $1,000 for something Marcus called temporary crisis that he never explained. The final total made my hands go numb. $152,400. I had given them $152,400 in 3 years while living on $31,000 annually from my teacher's pension. The mathematics were impossible, which meant I had destroyed myself to build them up. Savings bonds Jerome left me, cashed early with penalties. The small IRA I had been contributing to since my 20s, liquidated. A home equity loan against the house. Jerome and I had finally paid off 2 years before he died. I had done all of this believing I was helping my son. Believing that mother's sacrifice. Believing that love was measured in dollars, transferred, and bills paid and wants fulfilled without question. I wrote one text message and sent it to Marcus before I could think myself out of it. I will no longer be providing financial support. I wish you well. Then I blocked his number, blocked Candace's number, turned off my phone again and sat in the silence of my kitchen, listening to the refrigerator hum and click, that sick, struggling sound it made before it stopped cooling properly. Another thing I had been meaning to fix but kept putting off because their needs always came first. Not anymore. The next morning I called Patricia Kimmel, a woman I had known since we were both 16 years old at Carver High School. She had become a lawyer specializing in elder law and family disputes. We had not spoken in probably 5 years, but when I explained what I needed, her voice shifted into something professional and sharp. Come to my office this afternoon. Bring documentation of everything. Patricia's office was downtown in one of those renovated buildings where they kept the brick walls exposed to look historic but added glass and chrome to look modern. Her desk was neat, organized, everything in its place. She had always been like that, even in high school. Methodical, precise. She listened to my story without interrupting. I told her about the 3 years of payments, the wedding exclusion, the messages calling me selfish and pathetic. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and looked at me with an expression I could not quite identify. Do you have records of all these payments? I pulled out the folder I had prepared. Bank statements, credit card bills, receipts, Venmo confirmations. Everything printed and organized chronologically with tabs separating each year. Patricia flipped through page after page. Her eyes widened. Mrs. Parker, this is extraordinary. Most clients come to me with vague memories and maybe a few statements. You have built a complete case here. A case for what? I just want them to leave me alone. She looked at me seriously. Adeline. May I call you Adeline? What they have done is financial exploitation. possibly fraud, depending on whether they misrepresented their situation to you. And based on their threatening messages, I am concerned this may escalate. Escalate how? People who lose access to money often become desperate. They might try to manipulate you emotionally, claiming you are abandoning them. They might try to prove you are incompetent to manage your own affairs. I have seen adult children attempt to gain guardianship over parents for exactly this reason. Marcus would not do that. Patricia's expression told me I was wrong before she spoke. I hope you are right, but I want you to be prepared. First, we file a police report documenting the situation. Second, I send them a formal cease and desist letter. Third, if they contact you again with threats or demands, you document everything and you call me immediately. This seemed excessive for just stopping payments to my adult son. But Patricia had been practicing law for 25 years and I had been practicing denial for 3, so I trusted her judgment. We filed the police report that afternoon at the Birmingham Police Department. The officer who took my statement was a young black woman with her hair pulled back tight, nameplate reading Officer J. Thompson. She looked at me with recognition, like she had heard this story before from other mothers, other grandmothers. Ma'am, you did the right thing coming here. This creates a record, protects you if things escalate. 2 days later, Patricia's firm sent certified letters to both Marcus and Candace. The letters informed them that all financial support had been permanently terminated, that any further contact requesting money would be considered harassment, and that I had filed a police report documenting the situation. I did not expect what came next. My phone rang from an unknown number. I should not have answered, but old habits are hard to break. A man's voice, professional and clipped. Mrs. Parker, this is Davidson Properties regarding the lease at 1420 Peachtree Place in Atlanta. We show you as the financial guarantor, and this month's rent has not been paid. I am not the guarantor on any lease. Ma'am, I am looking at the document right now. Your name, your address, your social security number. My stomach dropped. Then someone forged my signature because I never signed anything. Silence on the other end. Then, I will need to transfer you to our legal department. 20 minutes on hold, listening to elevator music. Then, 3 different people asking me the same questions. Finally, a woman from their legal department confirmed what I already knew in my bones. Marcus and Candace had renewed their lease 6 months earlier and forged my signature on the guarantor section. If they defaulted, Davidson Properties could come after me for every unpaid dollar. I called Patricia from my car in the police station parking lot. She told me to come back inside immediately and amend my report to include the fraud. Officer Thompson took the new information with a tightness around her mouth that said she was angry on my behalf. This is identity theft, Mrs. Parker. Your son committed a crime. I sat with that word. Crime. My son was a criminal. That should have shocked me more than it did. The next 2 weeks passed in a strange, suspended quiet, like the air pressure before a storm. I heard nothing from Marcus or Candace. Patricia said that was normal, that they were probably consulting with a lawyer of their own. I tried to go about my normal life, but everything felt different. I could not concentrate on the book I was reading for my library book club. I could not enjoy my morning coffee. I kept waiting for something terrible to happen. It happened on a Thursday, a knock on my door at 9 in the morning. I opened it to find a sheriff's deputy holding a manila envelope thick with papers. He asked if I was Adeline Marie Parker. When I said yes, he handed me the envelope and told me I had been served. Marcus and Candace were suing me. I stood in my doorway holding that envelope after the deputy left, feeling the weight of it in my hands. It took me 10 minutes to open it. When I finally did, when I read what they were claiming, I had to sit down on my front steps because my legs would not hold me. They were suing me for financial elder abuse and abandonment. The words on the legal papers said I had established a voluntary pattern of support over 36 months, that they had reasonably relied on this pattern to structure their careers, their living situation, their entire lives, that by terminating support abruptly and without cause, I had inflicted severe emotional distress and financial hardship, They were seeking $50,000 in damages plus a court order forcing me to resume all previous payments for at least 24 additional months. But that was not the worst part. The lawsuit included a separate petition claiming I was suffering from cognitive decline and early-stage dementia, that my sudden irrational behavior, cutting them off without explanation, was evidence that I could no longer manage my own affairs. They were asking a judge to appoint Marcus as my legal guardian with full power of attorney over my finances, my health care, my life. They wanted to take control of everything because I had stopped giving them money. I called Patricia. My voice came out strange, like I was speaking through water. They are saying I have dementia. They are trying to have me declared incompetent. Come to my office right now. Do not stop anywhere. Come directly here. Patricia's office felt safe in a way my own house suddenly did not. She read through the lawsuit twice, her expression getting harder each time. This is obscene. They have no medical evidence, no doctor's testimony, just claims from Candace's mother, who you have met twice, and some friend of theirs you have never met. A judge will see right through this, but what if they do not? What if someone believes them? Patricia reached across her desk and took my hand. Her skin was warm and her grip was firm. Adeline, listen to me. We have your complete medical records from Dr. Chen showing zero cognitive issues. We have the financial documentation you created, proving you have exceptional organizational skills. We have the fact that you recognized exploitation and took rational steps to protect yourself. That is not dementia. That is clarity. She pulled her hand back and opened her laptop, already working. We are going to destroy them in court. But you need to prepare yourself for how ugly this will get. They are going to say terrible things about you. They are going to try to make you look confused, irrational, vindictive. Can you handle that? I thought about Candace's voice on the phone telling me I had nothing without them. I thought about Marcus letting her say it. I thought about 3 years of giving everything and being called difficult when I finally stopped. I can handle it. The weeks before the trial blurred together. Depositions where lawyers asked the same questions over and over, trying to catch me in inconsistencies. Medical evaluations where doctors tested my memory and my reasoning and wrote reports confirming what I already knew, that my mind was sound. Nights lying awake imagining worst-case scenarios where a judge sided with Marcus, and I lost control of the life Jerome and I had built together. But something else happened during those weeks too. I started rebuilding. I got my air conditioning fixed, called the repairman I had been putting off for 6 months, and paid the $400 to make my house livable again. The cold air felt like a gift I had been denying myself. I refilled all my prescriptions, stood at the pharmacy counter at CVS and paid for everything without mentally calculating whether I could afford it if I skipped something else. My blood pressure medication, my arthritis medication, the vitamin D my doctor had been telling me to take for 2 years. I bought a new refrigerator to replace the one that had been dying since before Jerome passed. The delivery men hauled away the old one and installed the new one, and when I opened it that night and heard the quiet hum of machinery that worked properly, I cried. Not sad tears. Something else. Relief, maybe. Or just the release of tension I had been holding for so long it had become part of my body. I joined the book club at the Birmingham Public Library that I had been meaning to attend for 3 years, but never had time for because I was always working extra tutoring jobs to send money to Atlanta. Thursday nights, 8 women between 50 and 75, reading everything from mysteries to memoirs. After the meetings, we went to a coffee shop on 3rd Avenue and talked about books and life and everything that mattered. It was at book club that I met Eleanor Washington. She was 72, a retired nurse with silver hair she wore natural and close-cropped. We were discussing a memoir about family dysfunction when something in the conversation opened a door and I found myself telling her everything. The payments, the wedding, the lawsuit claiming I had dementia. Eleanor listened without interrupting. When I finished, she reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Baby, you are not alone in this. I went through something similar with my daughter about 10 years back. Gave her money for 5 years thinking I was helping. Turned out I was just teaching her she did not have to stand on her own feet. What happened? I cut her off just like you did. She did not speak to me for 3 years. Then one day she called, said she had been in therapy, said she finally understood what she had done. We have a relationship now. Different than before, but honest. Do you think Marcus will ever understand? Eleanor considered the question carefully. I think it depends on whether he is willing to look past his wife's voice and hear his own conscience. But honey, whether he understands or not, you did the right thing. You cannot set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. That phrase stayed with me through the weeks leading up to trial. I repeated it to myself when doubt crept in late at night. You cannot set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. It became a mantra, a reminder, a truth I had learned too late, but not too late to save myself. The trial was set for a cold morning in January. I woke at 5:30 even though we did not need to be at the courthouse until 9. I made coffee and sat at my kitchen table watching the sky lighten from black to gray to pale winter blue. I had laid out my clothes the night before. A navy dress I had owned since Jerome's funeral. The pearl necklace he gave me for our 25th anniversary. Patricia had told me to look dignified but modest, to be exactly what I was, a retired schoolteacher on a fixed income. The Jefferson County Courthouse was downtown, a building I had driven past 1,000 times but never entered. Inside, everything was wood paneling and fluorescent lights that made everyone look tired. Patricia met me in the hallway outside the courtroom. She was wearing a gray suit and her hair was pulled back severe and her expression was focused. Remember what we talked about. Answer questions directly. Do not elaborate unless asked. Do not let them make you angry. Show the judge who you really are. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Maybe 20 rows of benches for observers, though only a handful of people were scattered among them. The judge's bench sat elevated at the front, empty for now. 2 tables faced it, one for each side. Marcus and Candace were already seated at the plaintiff's table with their lawyer, a young white man in an expensive suit who looked barely 30. Marcus saw me enter, and his eyes met mine for just a second before he looked away. He was wearing the tie I had bought him for Christmas 2 years ago. I wondered if he remembered that. Candace did not look at me at all. She sat with her back straight and her hands folded on the table in front of her, staring at the judge's empty bench like she could will it to rule in her favor through concentration alone. All rise. We stood as the judge entered. She was a black woman, maybe early 60s, with gray streaking through her hair and an expression that said she had seen everything and was impressed by none of it. Her nameplate read, Judge Veronica Crawford. Something in my chest loosened just slightly when I saw her. Not because I assumed she would favor me, but because I knew she would understand certain things without them needing to be explained. Judge Crawford sat and told us to sit. She looked at both tables, at Patricia and the young lawyer, whose name I learned was Tyler Morrison. Then she looked directly at me for a long moment. Her face gave away nothing. Mr. Morrison, your opening statement. Tyler stood and buttoned his suit jacket. He had a smooth way of speaking, like he had practiced this in front of a mirror. He talked about the sacred bond between parent and child, about how I had voluntarily supported Marcus and Candace for 3 years, creating a pattern they had relied upon, about how I had suddenly and inexplicably withdrawn that support, causing them devastating hardship. He used words like emotional distress and financial crisis, and reasonable expectation. He made it sound like I had abandoned a toddler in a parking lot instead of stopping payments to 2 adults with full-time jobs. Then Patricia stood for our opening statement. She did not button her jacket or smooth her skirt. She just stood there and let silence fill the courtroom for 3 full seconds before she spoke. Your Honor, this case is about 2 adults with a combined income of $140,000 per year suing a widow who lives on $31,000 because she stopped giving them money. Over the next few hours, We will show you that Mrs. Adeline Parker gave her son and daughter-in-law $152,400 in 3 years. That she did this by destroying her own financial security. And that when she finally stopped, they responded by trying to have her declared mentally incompetent so they could seize control of her finances. This is not a case about abandonment. This is financial elder abuse, and the perpetrators are sitting at the plaintiff's table. Judge Crawford made a note. Her expression had not changed, but something in the air felt different. Call your first witness, Mr. Morrison. Tyler called Candace. She stood and walked to the witness stand with careful steps, like she was performing each movement for an invisible camera. She wore a cream-colored dress that probably cost more than my monthly pension. Her makeup was perfect. Her hair was styled in loose waves that looked effortless, but I knew from 3 years of paying her salon bills cost at least $200 to achieve. The bailiff swore her in, and she sat with her hands folded in her lap, the picture of a concerned daughter-in-law. Tyler asked her softball questions designed to paint me as a generous mother who had suddenly turned cold and irrational. Candace answered in a soft voice that trembled just slightly, like she was holding back tears. She talked about how much they had relied on my support, how they had made career decisions and life choices based on my promises to help them. How devastating it had been when I cut them off without warning or explanation. She was good at this. I could see why Marcus had fallen for her. She knew exactly what to say and how to say it to make herself the victim. Then Patricia stood for cross-examination, and the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Mrs. Murphy, what is your current annual salary? Candace blinked, caught off guard by the directness. Around $62,000. And your husband Marcus earns approximately $78,000 annually? Yes. So your combined household income is $140,000 per year? Yes. But we have expenses. Atlanta is expensive. Patricia picked up a document from our table. I am sure you do have expenses. Is it true that during the 3 years Mrs. Parker was supporting you financially, you and Marcus took 2 international vacations? Candace shifted in her seat. Those were for our mental health. Work was very stressful. A vacation to Cancun that cost $6,000 and a trip to Italy that cost $11,000. Patricia let those numbers sit in the air. During this same period, Mrs. Parker was skipping her prescription medications to ensure your rent was paid on time. Were you aware of that? How would I know what medications she was taking? Did you ever ask? Did you ever inquire whether your requests for money were causing her financial hardship? She said she wanted to help. She offered. Patricia moved closer to the witness stand. Mrs. Murphy, on March 15th, you called Mrs. Parker to inform her that you and Marcus had gotten married the previous day. Is that correct? Yes. And you told her the wedding was small and intimate, for special people only. Those were your words, were they not? Candace's jaw tightened. I do not remember my exact phrasing. We have phone records showing a 12-minute call from your number to Mrs. Parker's at 2:37 p.m. that day. We also have Mrs. Parker's contemporaneous notes describing your statement that she was not special enough to be invited. Does that refresh your memory? I did not mean it that way. She is twisting things. How did you mean it, Mrs. Murphy? We wanted a small ceremony without complications. Adeline can be very emotional. Emotional. Patricia repeated the word like she was examining it. Is that what she was being 4 days later when you called her and screamed at her? When you told her that her life was pathetic and meaningless without you in it? Tyler jumped up. Objection, Your Honor. Badgering. Judge Crawford looked at Patricia. Move on, counselor. Patricia nodded. Mrs. Murphy, when Mrs. Parker stopped sending you money, how did you feel? Candace's composure cracked just slightly. I felt betrayed. We had structured our entire lives around her support or her money. Silence. Answer the question, Mrs. Murphy. It is the same thing. Patricia smiled, cold and sharp. No further questions. Marcus was called to testify next. Watching him stand and walk to the witness stand was one of the hardest things I had ever done. This was my son. The baby I had carried for 9 months. The child I had rocked through fevers and nightmares and every small hurt that comes with growing up. The man I had loved so completely that I had destroyed my own future trying to build his. He looked nervous. His hand shook slightly when he placed it on the Bible to be sworn in. He would not look at me as he sat down. Tyler asked him easy questions. How long had I been supporting them? 3 years. Why did they accept the help? Because I had offered, and they were trying to get established. How did he feel when I stopped? Confused and hurt. Marcus's answers were quiet, hesitant. He did not have Candace's smooth performance quality. He sounded like what he was, a man who knew he had done something wrong but was not ready to admit it out loud. Then Patricia stood for cross-examination, and I watched my son try to defend the indefensible. Mr. Parker, do you love your mother? The question seemed to catch him off guard. Of course I do. When was the last time you told her that? Silence. Marcus looked down at his hands. Mr. Parker, the question is simple. When did you last tell your mother you love her? I do not remember exactly. When was the last time you visited her home in Birmingham? Marcus shifted in his seat. Maybe 6 months ago. For her birthday. Your mother's birthday is in February. This is January. If you visited 6 months ago, that would have been July, not February. Patricia consulted her notes. According to Mrs. Parker's calendar, you last visited her home 14 months ago for Thanksgiving. Does that sound accurate? Maybe. I am not good with dates, but you are good with requesting money. Patricia picked up a thick folder. We have documentation of 67 separate requests for financial assistance over 36 months. 67 times you contacted your mother asking for money via text, Venmo, email, or phone call. How many of those requests included the words, "Thank you"? Marcus looked miserable. I do not know. I can tell you. 4. 4 times out of 67 did you express gratitude. That is approximately 6%. Does that seem like the behavior of a loving son? I assumed she knew I was grateful. You assumed. Patricia moved closer. Did you assume she knew she was not invited to your wedding, or did your wife explicitly tell her she was not special enough? Tyler stood. Objection, Your Honor. Asked and answered. Sustained. Judge Crawford looked at Patricia. You have made your point, Counselor. Patricia nodded. One more question, Mr. Parker. Why are you really here today? What do you mean? You are suing your mother, claiming she abandoned you financially and that she is mentally incompetent. Why? Because she cut us off without warning. We were relying on her help. Her help or her money? Marcus finally looked at me. His eyes were red. It is the same thing, he said quietly, echoing Candace's words exactly. Patricia sat down. No further questions. Judge Crawford called a 15-minute recess. I went to the bathroom and stood at the sink splashing cold water on my face. In the mirror, I looked older than I remembered. Gray hair that I had stopped dyeing because salon visits cost money I was sending to Atlanta. Lines around my eyes that had deepened over 3 years of stress. But something else too. Something in my expression that looked almost like strength. When we returned to the courtroom, Patricia called me to testify. Walking to that witness stand felt like walking through water. Everything moved too slow. I placed my hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. I sat down and looked at Patricia and waited. Mrs. Parker, why did you start giving money to your son and daughter-in-law? I took a breath. Because I loved Marcus and I wanted to help him build a good life. After my husband Jerome died, I was lonely. Giving them money made me feel useful, needed. It filled a hole that grief had left behind. When did you realize the situation had become unhealthy? When Candace called to tell me they had gotten married without inviting me. She said they only wanted special people there. I had been paying their bills for 3 years, and I was not special enough to stand in a courthouse for 5 minutes. My voice cracked on those last words. Judge Crawford was watching me closely. Why did you continue giving them money for so long? Because I kept hoping it would change. I kept thinking if I just helped a little more, if I was just generous enough, Marcus would remember that I was his mother and not just a source of funding. But it never changed. It only got worse. Patricia walked me through the financial documentation. The $43,000 in rent, the $18,000 in furniture, the groceries and utilities and insurance and emergency transfers. The total of $152,400 given while living on $31,000 annually. Mrs. Parker, how did you afford to give them that much money? I cashed out the savings bonds my husband left me. I liquidated my IRA early and paid the penalties. I took a home equity loan against the house Jerome and I spent 30 years paying off. I skipped my own medications and delayed medical procedures and lived on rice and beans so I could send them money for Whole Foods deliveries. And when you stopped supporting them, how did they react? Candace called me selfish, bitter, pathetic. She said my life was meaningless without them in it. Then they sued me claiming I have dementia so they could take control of my finances. Do you have dementia, Mrs. Parker? No, I do not. I have clarity. For the first time in 3 years, I can see the situation for what it really was, and I am protecting myself. Tyler cross-examined me, but his questions were weak. He asked if I felt vindictive. I said no. I felt sad. He asked if I regretted helping my son. I looked at Marcus when I answered. I regret that my help taught him the wrong lessons. I regret that I enabled him to avoid growing up. I regret that he learned to value me for my bank account instead of for who I am. But I do not regret loving him, even though that love was not returned in any meaningful way. Marcus looked down at the table. Candace stared straight ahead, her jaw set in anger. Tyler had no more questions. After testimony concluded, both sides gave closing arguments. Tyler tried one more time to paint me as a mother who had abandoned her child. Patricia dismantled his argument in under 5 minutes, laying out the financial reality so clearly that even Tyler looked uncomfortable by the end. Judge Crawford called a brief recess to consider her ruling. 15 minutes, she said. We sat in silence while she was gone. I could feel Marcus looking at me, but I kept my eyes forward, on the empty judge's bench. When Judge Crawford returned, her expression was severe. I have reviewed all evidence and testimony. This case represents a disturbing attempt by adult children to weaponize the legal system against an elderly parent who demonstrated extraordinary generosity. She looked directly at Marcus and Candace as she spoke. The plaintiffs claim they relied on Mrs. Parker's support. However, the evidence shows a combined household income of $140,000 annually. They chose to live beyond their means, subsidized by a woman earning less than 1/4 of their income. When Mrs. Parker recognized this imbalance and stopped it, they did not respond with gratitude for 3 years of support. They responded with harassment and this lawsuit. Judge Crawford picked up her papers. I have medical records from Mrs. Parker's physician confirming 0 cognitive decline. I have financial documentation showing exceptional organizational capacity. I have testimony that was coherent, rational, and appropriate. There is no evidence of incompetence. What I see is a woman who recognized exploitation and protected herself. That is not dementia. That is wisdom. Judge Crawford's voice filled the courtroom with the kind of authority that comes from decades of seeing human behavior at its worst and refusing to accept it. The court finds no legal obligation for parents to support adult children capable of supporting themselves. A pattern of voluntary gifts does not create an enforceable contract. Mrs. Parker had every right to stop payments for any reason or no reason at all. She paused, and her expression hardened in a way that made Candace shrink back slightly in her chair. Furthermore, this court finds the plaintiff's conduct not only without merit, but ethically disturbing. The attempt to have Mrs. Parker declared incompetent appears to be a transparent effort to continue financial exploitation through legal means. This behavior is reprehensible. Judge Crawford looked down at her written ruling and read from it formally. All claims are dismissed with prejudice. The defendant is awarded legal fees and costs totaling $8,300 to be paid jointly by plaintiffs within 90 days. Additionally, the forged lease signature remains under investigation by Birmingham Police Department and criminal charges may be pending. She set down her papers and looked at Marcus and Candace with an expression I had seen on my own face when I caught students cheating. Mr. Parker, Mrs. Murphy, I'm going to say something beyond my official ruling. I have been on this bench for 22 years. I have seen many variations of family dysfunction, but this case stands out for its sheer audacity. Your mother gave you over $150,000. She sacrificed her health, her security, her future. You responded with exclusion, insult, and legal action. You should be ashamed. This court is adjourned. The gavel came down with a sound like a door closing, final and absolute. Patricia gathered her papers while I sat frozen in my chair, trying to process what had just happened. We had won. Completely. The lawsuit was dismissed. They had to pay my legal fees. A judge had called their behavior reprehensible in open court. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I just felt tired and sad and old. Marcus caught me in the hallway outside the courtroom while Patricia was talking to the clerk. Candace had already left, probably unable to face the humiliation of defeat. But Marcus stayed. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. Mom. Just that one word and his voice broke on it. I stopped walking and turned to face him. Up close I could see the dark circles under his eyes, the tightness around his mouth. He looked like he had not been sleeping well. Good, I thought, and then immediately felt guilty for thinking it. I am so sorry. I did not realize how bad things had gotten. Candace kept pushing, and I just went along with it because arguing with her was exhausting. But I should have stood up for you. I should have protected you. I am sorry, Mom. I miss you so much. Can we please start over? I looked at my son and tried to find the little boy I remembered. The child who used to climb into my lap when he was scared. The teenager who called me from college just to hear my voice. I searched for that person and could not find him anywhere in the man standing before me. Marcus, I said. And I made my voice gentle because I could not be cruel even now. I forgive you. I do. Because holding on to anger will only hurt me, and I have been hurt enough. But I cannot have you in my life anymore. Mom, please. Every time I would look at you, I would remember sitting in that courtroom. I would remember you signing papers claiming I had dementia. I would remember you standing silent while Candace called me pathetic. Those memories will not fade just because you are sorry now. But I am your son. You are my son. You will always be my son. I carried you and raised you, and I loved you with everything I had. But being your mother does not mean I have to accept being used. It does not mean I have to let you hurt me over and over. I deserve better than that, Marcus. I deserve to be valued for who I am, not what I can provide. His face crumpled. Tears ran down his cheeks, and he did not wipe them away. I will do better. I will change. Just give me another chance. I reached out and touched his face one time, the way I used to when he was small and needed comfort. My hand against his cheek and his skin warm under my palm. I hope you do change. I hope you learn to build a life on your own efforts instead of someone else's sacrifice. I hope one day you understand what you lost here, but you will figure that out without me. I dropped my hand and stepped back. Patricia appeared at my elbow, reading the situation instantly. Mrs. Parker, we should go. I looked at Marcus one last time. Goodbye, Marcus. I mean that sincerely. I hope you find what you are looking for. I turned and walked away. He called after me, but I did not turn around. Patricia walked beside me in silence until we reached her car in the parking garage. She did not say anything, just drove me home while I stared out the window at Birmingham passing by. When she pulled up in front of my house, she turned to me. "That took real courage, what you did in there. Both on the stand and in that hallway." It did not feel like courage. It felt like the only choice I had left. Sometimes those are the same thing. Life moved forward because life always does, indifferent to our pain and our victories. Marcus and Candace paid my legal fees in 3 installments over 90 days. Each payment arrived via bank transfer with no message attached. I deposited the money and used it to rebuild my emergency savings. I did not hear from Marcus after that day in the courthouse hallway. No calls, no texts, no birthday card when February came around. The silence hurt, but it also brought relief. Sometimes the absence of pain becomes its own kind of peace. About 4 months after the trial, I received a message on Facebook from someone named Jessica Murphy. She identified herself as Candace's younger sister. I remembered her vaguely from a barbecue 3 years ago. She wanted me to know that Marcus and Candace were separating. Without my financial support, she explained, they had been forced to move to a cheaper apartment. They sold the Audi and bought a used car. They canceled subscriptions and cut back and lived within their actual means for the first time. The stress revealed that their marriage was built on spending money they did not have. When the money ran out, they had nothing left but resentment. Candace blamed Marcus for losing his ATM mother. Marcus blamed Candace for destroying his relationship with me. They fought about money constantly. The marriage lasted 14 months from their secret wedding to the day Marcus moved out. Jessica asked, with remarkable nerve, if I would consider helping Marcus through the divorce since he was struggling financially and emotionally. I read that message 3 times to make sure I understood correctly. They wanted me to fund Marcus's divorce from the woman who sued me for dementia. I typed a polite response declining and wishing them well. Then I blocked Jessica's account and deleted the message. Some lessons have to be learned the hard way, and I was done being anyone's safety net. I spent the money I saved by not supporting Marcus and Candace on rebuilding the life I had neglected for 3 years. Not extravagantly, just carefully, deliberately, choosing myself for once. I scheduled the dental work I had been postponing since Jerome's illness. The crown on my back molar that I had been living without, learning to chew on one side of my mouth to avoid the sensitive spot. Dr. Richardson, my dentist of 20 years, looked relieved when I finally came in. He had been leaving voicemails for 18 months. The procedure took 2 appointments and cost $1,200, exactly what I used to send to Atlanta for 1 month's rent. When it was done and I could eat normally again, the relief felt almost miraculous. I replaced my eyeglasses. The ones I had been wearing were 6 years old with scratches across the lenses that made reading difficult. I went to the optometrist and got an exam and picked out new frames, nothing fancy, just simple and functional. But when I put them on and could see clearly again, the world looked sharper, more defined, like I had been living in a blur without realizing it. I bought a new winter coat. Not from the clearance rack at Belk where I usually shopped, but from the regular section. A wool blend in deep burgundy that fit properly and made me feel elegant instead of just covered. The old coat with the broken zipper held together by a safety pin went into the donation box at church. But more than the physical things, I invested in relationships. My Thursday book club became sacred time. 8 women between 50 and 75, reading everything from Toni Morrison to mystery novels to memoirs about women who rebuilt their lives after loss. We met at the library and then walked to a coffee shop on 3rd Avenue where we talked about books and children and aging and what it meant to choose yourself when you had spent decades choosing everyone else. Eleanor Washington became my closest friend. She understood without needing extensive explanations because she had lived her own version of my story. We started meeting for lunch on Tuesdays at a soul food place near her house in Ensley. She introduced me to her church choir and I joined, something I had wanted to do for years, but never made time for when I was working extra tutoring jobs to fund Marcus's lifestyle. Singing in that choir did something to my spirit I had not expected. Standing there with 20 other women, our voices blending together on hymns I had known since childhood, I felt connected to something larger than my own pain. The music filled spaces in me I had not realized were empty. I volunteered at Carver Elementary, the school where I had taught for 32 years. The principal, Mrs. Davis, was thrilled to have me back helping with reading programs for struggling second graders. Those children reminded me why I had become a teacher in the first place. Their eagerness to learn, their trust that I could help them, their gratitude for attention and patience and time. They valued me for what I gave that had nothing to do with money. One Tuesday in May, 6 months after the trial, I was having lunch with Eleanor at Miss Lucille's kitchen when she asked me a question I had been avoiding. "Have you thought about what you will do if Marcus reaches out again?" I set down my fork. The question made my stomach tighten. "I do not think he will, but if he does..." "Have you thought about it?" I had thought about it. Late at night when sleep would not come, I played out scenarios in my mind. Marcus showing up at my door. Marcus calling to say he had left Candace. Marcus apologizing again, more convincingly this time. In every scenario, I did not know what I would do. I do not know if I could trust him again. Trust takes years to build, and he destroyed it completely. Eleanor nodded slowly. "That is fair, but I want to ask you something else. Do you think you could forgive him? Not reconcile, necessarily, but truly forgive." I looked out the window at the street, at people walking past living their lives. I thought about Judge Crawford's gavel coming down. I thought about Marcus crying in the courthouse hallway. I thought about the little boy who used to hold my hand crossing streets. I think I already have forgiven him. I had to, for my own peace. But forgiveness does not mean forgetting. It does not mean letting him hurt me again. It just means I am not carrying the weight of his choices anymore. That is wise, baby. Eleanor reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You have come so far." "I have, but some days it still hurts. Of course it does. He is your child. That does not stop mattering just because he did terrible things. But you are allowed to love him from a distance. You are allowed to wish him well while also protecting yourself. Those things can both be true." That conversation stayed with me through the following months. I did love Marcus still, in some deep part of myself that could not be reasoned away. But I also knew I could not have him in my life. Both things were true, and I had to learn to hold them together without letting either one destroy me. Summer came. The heat in Birmingham turned thick and heavy. I spent my days reading on my front porch, the new air conditioning inside keeping my house cool for when the heat became unbearable. I tended the small garden Jerome had planted years ago, coaxing tomatoes and peppers and herbs from the Alabama soil. I cooked meals for myself, using fresh ingredients instead of whatever was cheapest. I learned to enjoy my own company in a way I never had before. One evening in July, I was sitting on my porch watching fireflies blink in the dusk when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost did not answer, but something made me pick up. "Mrs. Parker? This is Davidson Properties in Atlanta. We wanted to inform you that the lease with your name forged as guarantor has been resolved. Mr. Parker and Mrs. Murphy moved out last month, and the final inspection showed no damages. You have no financial liability. We apologize for any stress this situation caused. Thank you for letting me know. We also wanted you to know that we have provided the forged documents to the Birmingham police as you requested. We take fraud very seriously. I appreciated that." After I hung up, I sat in the growing darkness and felt something release in my chest. The last thread connecting me to their chaos had been cut. They were gone from my life completely now. No more legal obligations. No more threats. No more manipulation. Just silence and fireflies and the sound of my own breathing in the summer night. I was free. Truly, completely free. And for the first time in 4 years, since before Jerome got sick, since before the long slide into grief and loneliness and exploitation, I felt like myself again. Diminished in some ways, certainly, older, more scarred, but also stronger, more sure of my own worth, more willing to protect it. I went inside and made myself a cup of tea. I sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I had documented 3 years of financial abuse, where I had decided to stop, where I had chosen myself over the people who claimed to love me but only loved what I could provide. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Marcus eventually moved back to Birmingham. He got an apartment in Homewood and a new job at a marketing firm downtown. Candace went back to her family in Tennessee. I did not know if either of them learned anything from what happened, and honestly, it was no longer my concern. Their lives moved forward without me, and mine moved forward without them, and that separation was necessary, healthy even. Sometimes in the grocery store or at church or walking downtown, I would catch myself scanning faces looking for Marcus. Some part of me still waiting to see him, still hoping for something I could not quite name. But he never appeared, and maybe that was for the best. One afternoon in October, almost a year after the trial, Eleanor invited me to her granddaughter's first birthday party. It was held in her backyard in Ensley, full of family and noise and children running everywhere. I helped set up tables and cut cake, and watched Eleanor with her daughter and granddaughter, 3 generations of women who loved each other in ways that were visible and uncomplicated. On the drive home, I cried. Not from sadness exactly, but from the weight of what I had lost. I would never have grandchildren. I would never have those Sunday dinners where family gathered around my table. Marcus had taken that future from me when he chose Candace's manipulation over my love. Or maybe I had taken it from myself when I finally chose dignity over connection. But when I got home and walked into my quiet house, I also felt something else. Peace. The house was mine. The furniture was mine. The silence was mine. Nobody was using me. Nobody was manipulating me. Nobody was taking pieces of me and calling it love. I made myself dinner, just a simple salad and some grilled chicken. I ate at my kitchen table reading a novel from book club. After dinner, I sat on my porch with a glass of sweet tea and watched the October sunset turn the sky orange and pink and purple. This was my life now. Smaller than I had imagined it would be. Quieter, more solitary, but also more honest, more mine. I thought about the woman I had been 3 years ago, desperate for connection, willing to buy love because I did not believe I deserved it freely. That woman had been drowning and did not even know it. The woman I was now had learned to swim, had learned that generosity without boundaries is just self-destruction, had learned that love without respect is just exploitation wearing a prettier name, had learned that sometimes the people who hurt us most are the ones we would die to protect, and that is exactly why we have to walk away. If you are watching this and you see yourself in my story, if you have someone in your life who only values what you can give them, please hear this. You are worth more than your bank account. You are worth more than your sacrifice. You are worth more than the role someone else needs you to play in their life. Walking away from people you love is the hardest thing you will ever do. It will hurt in ways you cannot imagine. You will doubt yourself constantly. You will wonder if you are being selfish or cruel or unforgiving. But sometimes walking away is the only way to save yourself, and you are worth saving. My name is Adeline Parker. I am 68 years old. I was a second-grade teacher for 32 years at Carver Elementary in Birmingham, Alabama. I am a widow. I am a mother to a son who values money more than me. I am a friend to women who understand what it means to rebuild after loss. I am a volunteer. I am a choir member. I am a reader. I am a survivor. According to the people I loved most, I was not special enough to be invited to their wedding, but I learned something more important than being special to them. I learned to be valuable to myself. I gave them $152,400 over 3 years. I gave them my time, my energy, my health, my future. They gave me exclusion, insult, and a lawsuit claiming I was mentally incompetent. In a twisted way, I got the better deal. I lost money, but I gained myself back. I lost my son, but I found my dignity. I lost the fantasy of being needed, but I discovered the reality of being valued by people who see me as more than a source of funds. The money is gone, and it will never come back. My retirement will be smaller because of those 3 years. I will work longer, budget tighter, make do with less. But I can look at myself in the mirror now without shame. I can sleep through the night without waking up at 3 in the morning, calculating how much I can afford to send next month. I can say no without guilt consuming me. That is worth more than $152,000. That is worth more than any amount of money I could have given away trying to purchase love that should have been offered freely. If this story resonated with you, if it reminded you of your own struggles with family or boundaries or self-worth, please subscribe to this channel. Leave a comment telling me about a time you had to choose yourself over someone you loved. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to find their own courage. We are not alone in this, any of us. There are thousands of mothers and fathers and siblings and friends who have learned the hard lesson that generosity without boundaries destroys the giver. As for Marcus and Candace, wherever they are now, I wish them well. I genuinely do. I hope they learn to build lives based on their own efforts. I hope they find happiness that does not require exploiting someone else. I hope they grow into better people than they were when I knew them. But I will never know if they do. That is their journey, and I am no longer part of it. My journey now is simpler, quieter. It involves my garden and my book club and my choir. It involves Tuesday lunches with Eleanor and volunteer mornings with second graders who still believe the world is good. It involves sitting on my porch, watching fireflies and drinking sweet tea and being grateful for the ordinary grace of a life that belongs entirely to me. I am 68 years old. I am not rich. I am not special according to the people who should have treasured me, but I am free. I am whole. I am mine. And that I have learned is more than enough.